So, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming this afternoon to the talk. Our topic today is the DAO of Bisq. Bisq is an open source project on top of Bitcoin. So it's a big change from the previous talk, no Ethereum. And DAO is one, how has this happened? Okay. DAO is one of the components of Bisq, which is right now in testing phase and is going to be launched in a near future, so a few weeks, I hope. A few words about myself. So I'm Eyal, as I said. I'm originally from Israel. I live in Berlin in the last many years. I'm a mathematician. I have a PhD in mathematics in the area of dynamical systems and differential equations. And in the last few years, I was doing consulting about cryptography, decentralization, consensus protocols. And the other stuff that I was doing, not for profit, is being involved in open source projects. For example, Bisq. And the specific thing that I did in Bisq is being part of the team that designed the DAO of Bisq. Bisq. I'm curious, so if you can raise your hand, how many people here have heard of Bisq or know what Bisq is? That's much more people who, when I gave a talk 2 months ago, it was less people. That's good. That's good. That's good. Bisq is a peer-to-peer marketplace for exchanging bitcoins with other currencies. And when I say other currencies, I mean cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin Ethereum, Bitcoin Monero, but I also mean fiat. So you can also use Bisq to exchange Bitcoin with US dollars or Bitcoin with euro. Now, you may say that, okay, this is very boring. I mean, there are lots of places that you can exchange Bitcoin for other stuff. What's special about Bisq? And the thing which is special about Bisq is that this is a software. So, from the moment that you downloaded the Bisq software, we are out of the pictures. There are no services. We don't give services. We don't communicate. This is also why I personally, Bisq is a decentralized project, so people have different views. I call it a marketplace and not an exchange, because when you say an exchange, people think of very fast transaction, some operator that does something. Even in the decentralized exchange, usually the operator does something, and has a website, interface, something. We don't do anything. You download Bisq, and you're on your own, communicating in the peer-to-peer network with other people who download Bisq. So what does it give us? First, it gives us privacy. When you exchange something with somebody, the only person who knows that you did it is the other person. So it's not anonymity, because if you exchange Bitcoin and euros, somebody knows your bank account. It is a privacy, which means that nobody besides the sides who are in the deal know about it. The other thing that you get here is censorship resistance. So we are not part of the trade. We cannot do anything. We cannot censor you. And the third thing that you get is if the software is well written and the protocol is well designed, you get security, because your account cannot be hacked and exchange cannot decide that to lock your money. The other part of the talk is going to be DAO. So I don't think that I need to ask how many people here have heard about DAO, because this is a much more common concept in blockchain. DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, and it has 3 parts. Organization is like, I think people know what it is. It's a group of people that decide to work together towards some common goal. And in the normal world, traditional world, non-blockchain world, usually if you're a group of people who decide to do that and you want some kind of security, you have to register yourself as an official organization with some legal jurisdiction. And this solution is great. I mean, it works very well. It's not always fit for some kind of new internet communities, because if you look at Bisq, we have people from all over the world. From the States, from Europe, from Israel, from other parts of the world. Some people I don't know where they are. Some people I don't know their real identity. If we decide to register a legal, like a traditional organization, it is unclear so much in which jurisdiction we do it. And the moment that we also choose a jurisdiction, it will kind of influence us, give some people more control, because they will be closer geographically to this jurisdiction. The other thing, so what we try to do in a DAO, generally, in my point of view, is to take this legal framework and replace it with cryptography, decentralization, peer-to-peer network, and protocols. And then you may say, well, that's nice, I mean, to replace legal system with cryptography and protocols, but why do you need it? I mean, I just said that Bisq is an open source, non-profit project. We don't give a service. We make a software. We can just put it in the internet. We don't charge people to use the software. Why do we need it? And there are 3 reasons that we need a DAO. One of them is, though we don't have income, we still kind of have of internet assets. We have a domain name, we have social media account, we have an email. Somebody needs to manage that, and we want the people to manage that, not to steal it, and the DAO is one of the things we're supposed to ensure that. The other thing is that while the organization, the software is free, the organization doesn't give any service, there are people in the community who give services like mediation to other people in the community. And we want somehow to give the people who, so we want somehow give reputation, and the DAO ensures that. And the last thing, which is very important, is that, again, while it is free, it is also a software in a very charged area. And design choices of the software are important. I mean, if the developer makes the default, the developer has a lot of influence of how people use it. And we don't want one person or one small group to do the defaults. And the DAO is, again, one of the things that's supposed to decentralize this governance and decision-making process. So I would love to go straight into the DAO, because that's my passion. But I can't speak about the DAO of Bisq without speaking about Bisq. So part 1, Bisq. So I heard about Bisq like a long time ago, I think 2015, but I was not involved in any way. And then the first point that I got involved was a year and a half ago in this place. This is Paralelní Polis. It's a hackerspace in Czech Republic. This picture is cool, and I have to say that the building in reality is almost as cool. So the picture does it justice. They call themselves Institute for Crypto Anarchism. And once a year in October, they have a conference. So this conference is half technical, half political, half economical. I do not identify myself with any political point of view, but I go there because I get to see there lots of really interesting stuff. So there's lots of libertarianism there, and though I am not so much into that, I like to hear about it. I like to hear about all the alternative stuff. And a year and a half ago, there was a talk by a co-founder of Bisq. His name is Chris Beams. And I think the title of the talk was How to Bootstrap a DAO. Back then, I was doing kind of a side project of DAOs, which was never done like most side projects. But I had lots of thoughts about it, and I had lots of doubts. And I knew the problems of how difficult it is to make a DAO which actually works, scalable, functions, and all this kind of stuff. So I came to the talk, and next to me sat another Bisq developer. And during the talk, I got into what happens to me normally in technical talks. I get grumpy. Like he says something, and I'm like, no way, that's not work. And after the talk, I stayed talking with this Bisq developer. And though in general I'm a very nice, smiley person, when I get to kind of theoretical discussion, I become intensive. And sometimes it gets some people need sometimes to get used to it. And I think that I was very intensive with this guy. I was asking a question, but how do you do this? But this wouldn't work. Until at some point, he just told me, hey, man, you want to maybe look at our design papers and see what you think? So I took the papers, I went over it like for 3-4 days. Then I spoke with another co-founder of Bisq, Manfred Carrer. And we changed some things, we updated. A week passed by, we made a few more talks. A month passed, they asked me some questions, I gave some more input. And as time goes, I found myself more and more involved in the design and development of Bisq. And after 8-10 months, I think that I was already saying that I'm a Bisq contributor or a Bisq core developer, or however you want to call it. And I'm not telling this story just to show that I was in a cool place, though I was. I'm telling it because I think that like in FOSDEM, I meet people who are in an open source project and they know how you join an open source project. But then I also meet all the people who want to join, but they don't know exactly how you begin with it. So that's one way. You take some component which you like, you think about it, you speak. Slowly, you get into the community until eventually you are part of it. This is what Bisq looks like. It's a screenshot from the software. No surprises here. I mean, if you saw some kind of exchange or a place to buy and sell Bitcoin, that's more or less how it looks like. There are asks or bids. The difference begins in behind what happens behind the scene, because there is no server, there is peer-to-peer network, and also what happens when you actually do a trade, because there is no automation here. There is no operator that does automatic matching and makes sure that the money transfers, etc. You have to do it yourself. And what the Bisq software tells you is it tells you how to do that. So let's take an example. That's me. That's a picture of me that was drawn when I was 20 years old. I had already didn't have much hair, but I still didn't have a hat. And I want to buy Bitcoin. So I broadcast via the Bisq, like some kind of announcement that I want to buy Bitcoin, and then some internet stranger comes back to me. Now, I don't know what the internet stranger looks like, but I assume that he looks like this, because I don't trust internet strangers, and neither should you. We discuss, he took my offer, and we agree on some kind of exchange. I give him 100 euros. He gives me a 0.1 Bitcoin, which is a fantastic rate for me. So the internet stranger is actually very generous. And then we go to the Bisq software, and the Bisq software tells us actually how to do this transaction. So the first thing that I do is I put a tie, because I don't do business without a tie. And the second thing that we do is we go to the Bisq software, and we open a multi-sig account in Bitcoin. So the software actually has like a Bitcoin wallet embedded in. We usually use this one. And in the multi-sig account, we put, first thing of all, the amount here is not updated, so now the trade is a bit better for him. But we put the Bitcoin that he was supposed to sell me, which is now a bit less, which is not good, and security deposits. I put security deposits, he put security deposits. The security deposits are in Bitcoin. This already means that to use Bisq and to do the whole trading protocol, I need to have some Bitcoin to make the security deposit. And that's true. We need it for security, and I'm not sure if there is any way around it. So if you have 0 Bitcoin and you want to use Bisq, you should get something at least to pay the security deposit first. Then once we did the multi-sig account, so there is money locked there, we go to the software, and the software tells me to give 100 euros to the bank. Great. The bank, then I tell the bank to give the 100 euros to the internet stranger. So now here's my 100 euros. I don't have the Bitcoin yet because it's still locked in the security deposit. So in the next stage, he tells the software that he got the money. The software tells him, well, you guys go and you unlock the security deposit, you unlock the multi-sig account. I get my Bitcoin that I bought plus the security deposit. He gets the security deposit, and we are all happy. This process is slightly simplified, of course, because there are security risks here, but I don't want to give the full trading protocol. I should have that we have about 1,001 security measures in the protocol, and I hope it's well thought. We are, of course, happy for any security problem that it has. We have, for example, besides the security deposit, we also have some mediation protocols and arbitration protocols, and we have, if you want to sell Bitcoin for euros in the first month, you think you can only make offers up to 100 or 400 euros, in the second month a bit more, and third month a bit more, so you cannot just begin and do huge deals with it. Bisq, so the work on Bisq began beginning 2014, right after the Mt. Gox accident. It might be a connection, I'm not sure. And it took about 2 years of hard development until the first release was in 2016. And of course, when you first release it, you find out that nobody used it. Then the numbers grow up a bit with time. In December 2017, there was a jump because the Bitcoin blockchain community went crazy. So all the exchanges were happy. Went a bit down afterwards, and towards the end of the year, it started to grow again, a lot from the Monero community, who started to exchange Bitcoin and Monero. In January, there was the launch of Greencoin, which Bisq was one of the places where people actually traded at, so we were very happy. And I should say that we have a smiley, nice community right now, and I think it's a great time to join the community, because it is big enough such that if you go to the Slack, if you go to the forums, mailing lists, stuff are happening. It's not boring, but it's small enough such that everybody knows everybody, at least by nickname, and you are not overswammed with information. So it's easy to follow. Bisq is written in Java, so Java developers, please come to our Slack and join the process. We need basically also non-Java developers. We need everything of everybody. So people who write documentations, who do social media, who do videos, everybody are welcome. We are a group of smiley faces. So please join us. So there is a smiley Bisq developer in the crowd right now. Now we can go to the DAO of Bisq, chapter 2. And I already talked a bit why we need a DAO, but in general, when people ask me why do you need a DAO for an open source project, I begin with a story that you are at home, you write a hobby project, you make a tiny demo and you show it to your friends, and your friend says, oh, that's quite a cool idea, let's join. And now you're 3 people. So you work together, you make an MVP, you release version 0.011 or whatever version it goes, and suddenly more people from the internet joins you, and then a few users, and you become more people, and then this happens. In almost every big enough open source community that doesn't have any structure. And this does not happen because engineers are strange or social people. I think it happens because we are human. So there was a book that I read earlier this year. It's by Yuval Noah Harari. He's an Israeli. He's, I think, kind of the poster child of Israeli history world. There is a course in the Jerusalem University of Introduction to the History of the World, and this course was traditionally given by 12 professors. Until he came, he was just teaching the whole course from beginning to end. And in this very interesting book, there is a point about communities. And he speaks how big community people can make just with communication, direct communication. And he gives there a number, I think it's 50 or 80 or 100, it also depends on personalities of people, etc. But there is a limit. That when you reach to this limit, you need some kind of social structure, some institution, some stuff that people knows, a way to make a decision, a way to people to know that they belong to the same community, though they don't really never spoke to each other. And that's where you need a structure, a DAO. So not a DAO, an organizational structure. If we are a big enough community of developers, we can have a traditional organization. That's option 1. And I already spoke about it. It's a fantastic option. It's worked for many cases. I think that in the case of Bisq, it was actually caused problems because we are all over the place. And also, we don't have a bank account. An organization needs a bank account in some country. Who of us will do that? When I have to trust them, it's a bit of an issue. The other thing that you can do is just use an online platform, a service. So GitHub has an organization option, which we use, and it's good. And you can add to it more feature, and eventually you can really manage your project with voting or whatever the online platform offers to you, and it's okay. And I think in FOSDEM it's okay to say that my experience with online platforms is that it's good for a short while. So when I join a platform, some service, usually I'm happy for a month or two, a month, half a year. Every service that I ever had, at some point I got annoyed by. They did something which I understood that I don't have control. They changed the terms of usage. They locked my account until suddenly they decided that I have to pay, and it was impossible to migrate. So I don't like platforms, but I use platforms because in the internet you cannot really do things alone nowadays. I cannot run my server at my home. But as a community, I think that you can be alone. So if you are many people, you can do stuff alone. So P2P network can be a bit like a server, and everyone does a few things, and you can really manage your internet stuff alone. So that's for me the DAO, the alone solution, or at least an effort. There are many ways to look at the DAO. So DAO is very popular right now in the blockchain world, and you go to different people, you got different definitions, and even I kind of always change here. How I look at it, it's all point of views, not one definition. I'm going to skip it because of time, and I'm going to go to what. So we have a DAO. What does the DAO do? For this, I have screenshots, which definitely could have been better from resolution, but I hope you see something. What you have here is people making compensation requests. The Bisq DAO has a token, and you use the token for governance. So for voting on the season, you need some kind of token. You get the token basically by contributing. So the more you contribute, the more you have, the more tokens you have, and the more tokens you have, the more you can vote. And this is compensation request. For example, this is me. You don't see, but here I'm making compensation request for 100,000 Bisqs. And here, after the proposal stage is over in the DAO, people go to the voting stage and downvote my request because they don't want to give me 100,000 Bisqs, because apparently I tell more jokes than contributing. What else we do is we have kind of bundled rules. So this is all from the testnet. The data here is like fake. It's not live, but we have bonded rules. So like Twitter operator, mediators, community managers. If you want to be one, you make a bond in tokens, and then if you somehow misuse your trust, the community vote to take your bonds. So it's kind of supposed to make us a possibility to find people from the community who misuse the trust of stealing the Twitter account. We also can bond reputation. So if the Internet Stranger, for example, would give a big bond for his reputation, then I would feel a bit more secure to make transaction with him, because I know if he cheats me, I can go to the community and prove that he cheated me, and then they can take his bond for the reputation. So that's another thing that the Bisq DAO is supposed to do. And the last thing, which I didn't take a screenshot, I think, is a protocol parameter, which is super important, because we have a trading protocol and we want to update that. Right now, big updates are kind of a hard fork. People really have to reinstall the software. And if you just take parameters from the DAO, then it's all about voting, and nobody really makes a long decision. The community make a decision, and things are being updated without a software update. Just the DAO is being updated. Nowadays, when people speak about DAOs, so there is this tweet from Alex van der Sande, I think from 2 weeks ago. He's a Ethereum developer, and this was a fantastic tweet. It's a series of tweets, and the first one says that 2019 might just be the year of the new DAO on Ethereum. I would like to highlight a few on-chain governance experiments that I'm excited about. And then he goes on for a few DAO stuff on Ethereum, and each one of them, in a really nice few lines, he kind of sums up what they do. We are not on Ethereum, and our governance, I'm not sure if it's called on-chain, but my point is that nowadays, when it comes to DAO, people are really curious about governance. So I have to speak about governance. It's another kind of part two. And the goal of Bisq is to have a meritocracy. So people who contributed to the community should make the decision. This is our definition of meritocracy. And the question is how you do that, how you make decisions. The answer is voting. How you decide who votes? Well, you do it by tokens. And who gets the tokens? You get token by contributing. I'm not going to speak much about tokens, because I saw so many very nice, great projects that once they entered the token, this was the only thing that they spoke about, and I don't like when it happens. So the last thing about the tokens is that you can also get tokens, so people can exchange tokens. And the question is, how do we do the exchange of the tokens? And what we do is kind of outsourcing. So we do colored coins on top of Bitcoin. I think that's it for about tokens. Tokens are necessary for us to know who can vote, and it's necessary for people to want to contribute and get compensated and maybe able to sell the tokens so they can get compensated in Bitcoin. I don't want to focus on tokens, because for me personally, it's not the main thing that I'm in the project or I'm into DAO. Sorry. So the third part is, how does the DAO work? There is implementation. And the most important thing about Bisq DAO is that it's a second order DAO. So it's supposed to be more scalable. The question is, what do I mean by a second order DAO? Because it is not a well-defined term. And one way to look at organizations for the purpose of this talk is a series of records, a series of decisions. And you can order the records. So this set of records was make first, and this second, and this, and this, and this. And in general, you have records plus some organization rules. That's a way that, for the purpose of this talk, I look at an organization. Now, if you took all of this thing and you put it on a blockchain, then you have an on-chain DAO, which is great, but not scalable. Plus, we use Bitcoin. We cannot put those things on Bitcoin. What we can do is put hashes on Bitcoin. Many hashes. Every hash of every proposal is put on Bitcoin. You can use op return to put hashes. The hashes of the votings are put of Bitcoins. This means that it's a lot of small transactions. So is it scalable? Kind of. It's more scalable. It's scalable enough. I mean, it's not going to be a method for Google, because Bitcoin has a finite amount of transaction that it can do. So for a huge organization, it won't work. If you now have 10,000 organizations using this method, it probably also won't work. It works for Bisq, for this stage and this size. So it's scalable enough for us. It's scalable enough for probably no more 100 organizations like Bisq. Not scalable forever, but it's a first step. Then our Bisq block, so this series of decision is created in first phases. Every phase is described in a number of Bitcoin blocks. So we have some kind of amount of Bitcoin blocks where people can make proposals. Then an amount of Bitcoin blocks when people have blind voting such that nobody can manipulate the results by looking at what other people do. And then there is the last stage of reveal votes. And the result of all of this is a Bisq block. The Bisq block, like the whole Bisq block cycle, takes about a month, more or less, depends on the Bitcoin exact block creation times. And it results in a new Bisq DAO block, where the information of the block is in the P2P network, and the hashes of all the information is to verify that in the Bitcoin. There is still a question of how do you do it, because how do you manage the votings? How do you know exactly which data is on the block? What happens, especially what is very dangerous, if somebody puts a hash on Bitcoin but does not publish the data on the Bisq P2P network? And for this, we do two assumptions in the design. One is that we can get the Bitcoin data. So everything which is on Bitcoin, we assume people can read and it's available. The other thing, we assume that stuff on the Bisq P2P network is available for people if a big amount of the participants of Bisq, of the P2P network, has it. So when we design the protocol, we have to make sure that if a big amount, that either that a big amount of people have the data, and then we know that like it's available for the rest of the community, or if people don't have it, then it's not so important. Let's go, sorry, still in this phase, let's look what happens. Like if I want to now make a proposal, compensation request or something, I hash it, I put the hash of the proposal on Bitcoin. So in the end of the phase, people go to Bitcoin and know exactly what they are supposed to vote on because there are like some amount of hashes. They may not know what is the proposal because it may be that I put a hash on Bitcoin, but I never really broadcast the text of the proposal on the Bisq P2P network. In this case, the default vote is no. So if people don't have my proposal, they will outvote it, and then it doesn't matter that other people will not have it in the future because it's not going to be part of the organization. Then, when this phase, proposal phase is over, I go to the blind vote. I take all the proposals that I know from the Bitcoin, and I take the text that I got from the Bisq P2P, and I vote, and I encrypt my vote. I put the hash of the encrypt of the bot on Bitcoin. So then I know how many people voted. There is a risk here that I will not publish the encrypted vote in Bisq P2P. So maybe people will think that I voted, but actually they will not have the encrypted vote, and they will never be able to decrypt it and know what I wanted to do. Which is why in the last stage, we do two things. One, we put a decryption key on Bitcoin. So we do it in one transaction. Put a decryption key on Bitcoin so people can decrypt our encrypted vote. That's great. Second thing, we take all the encrypted votes that we got. We combine them together in one block. We hash it, and then we also put this hash on the Bitcoin. And then people can go and see which hash is the most, and this will be the hash of the block that most people in the Bisq P2P network has, which means the data should be available. It's, again, a slight simplification, naturally, of the full protocol. And if you want to read more about the Bisq DAO, there are two places to do that. One of them is the Bisq network/DAO. You get there all the information you want for people who are users, technical, not technical, links to technical documentation, long specification. And then there is my analysis, which I wrote independently, and I put on my GitHub. It's quite a high-level analysis, but not so long, I think 5 or 6 pages of the Bisq protocol. It's supposed to go to explain how it works and convince you it's safe. And I think that this would be it. So thank you for coming. Yeah, that's it.
Any questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Just wondering, how do you handle Bitcoin forks, and also can the voting be disrupted by miners, for example, by discarding certain transactions?
So you say, how do we handle Bitcoin forks? And
Yes.
the second part is?
Can the miners affect voting by, for example, blocking certain transactions?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the Bitcoin forks that were like in the first stages of the Bisq, it was early stages. It was quite centralized. There were a few developers, and we just made our decision. For the future, I hope that when the DAO comes to action, there will be kind of a voting inside of the DAO, because there is also general option there for general votings to make a decision which of the fork we want to use. And then the question about censorship. Yes, we cannot make Bitcoin miners to accept the transactions. However, this is a general Bitcoin problem, and I'm not sure it's a problem because you do have right now enough miners to accept the kind of transactions that we do. So even if some don't want it, the voting period is quite long. So hopefully some miner will agree to mine it.
Hi. No, thanks for the presentation. Is that now going to deal with the trading fees of the system?
So in which way going to deal with the trading fees?
I mean, Bisq has also trading fees, right?
Yes.
So if the DAO is going to deal with that, or it will be just as right now?
No. So right now the trading fees are for compensating. It's go for the arbitrators, not for the organization, because the organization doesn't exist and doesn't have any revenues. There are two things about it. First thing of all, there will be like a parameter of the DAO, I think, which is trading things, so you can vote on it and decide to change it. And the second thing is that we are changing the arbitration mechanism to a mediation mechanism, which should lower the trading fees and would also give it an option to pay it in Bisq tokens to the mediators. So it should change. However, exactly how it will change, I think that the answer would be clear in about 2-3 months when this thing is really launched and we see what the community wants. So the idea is that like it's supposed to give you a tool to make community decisions. We have here a developer, one second. We have here developers who write right now the new trade protocol. So how is it going to be?
Can you wait for the mic?
Can you hear me? I do think, actually, for your question, that, for instance, transaction fees, things like that, those are the kind of parameters that the DAO will adjust. So, yeah, that's part of the purpose of it.
Any more questions? Yep.
Thanks. I have the question, is there any mechanism to prevent someone from voting multiple times or buying tokens to vote with?
So you can buy tokens to vote with.
Yeah.
The idea in general, I think like most voting blockchain mechanism is that 50% of the coin holders are good people. If more than 51% people who hold the token wants to make bad votes, they can do that. There is one thing maybe to say about the whole vision of a DAO. It's not a blockchain. I mean, so I presented a series of blocks, but that's not the idea. The idea is to represent an agreements in community. And if somebody will really buy most of the tokens and try to manipulate votings, the community can decide that they fork. So that's one thing. And the first question was if somebody can vote multiple times. So I think the protocol allows you to vote within the period only once with each token.
Yeah.
So you cannot vote multiple times. No.
Yeah, but if you create multiple accounts, then you could probably.
Yeah, the votings are weighted by the amount of tokens that you have.
Yeah.
So if you create multiple accounts, I mean, it's a linear sum. It won't matter eventually. Yeah. But a good question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any more questions? All right, let's thank Eyal again. your project? So you were a mathematician before, and then
I'm a mathematician. I was in the uni for many years, and then I just wanted to change. And I don't come from cryptography, but every Israeli mathematician has to do cryptography at some point of his life. It's a huge community. And I changed to cryptography, and now I do a little bit of consulting, like enough for me for income, and I spend most of my time on people.
But yes, I will try.
I think it FOSDEM is
You can leave at me if you.
how long have you been living in Berlin?
You
I
think
did
so?
my PhD in
Okay.
my master and PhD.
Think highly of me.
It's a long journey.
Okay.
Where are you from?
Paris, France.
Oh, it's okay.
This is your platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. You need to put the microphone, I'm afraid.
Is there something that's possible?
Eyal, I think you left.
Yeah, with the clip.
Should I test? Can you guys hear me in the back? That's good? All right.
I'm going to mute it now. We can talk freely. So the rules are. Okay, yeah. So you need to start on. You can't start before 50. You have a half an hour slot, which means 20 minutes for 25 for questions, and then 5 to switch to the last speaker. If you want, I can give you a 5-minute sign.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, next talk will start in a couple of minutes. It's by Sean Tabrizi. It's about Substrate, an open source framework for building blockchains.
So it's more about it. It's more about it. So it's a fantastic question. It can be a scenario that everybody can get tokens and if you sell them and then doesn't become obviously it becomes a big player for the you're right. The thing is that the initial step to begin with is only so we kind of use this algorithm with sections in the sounds and we divide the tokens based on class between community members and partner contributors.
All right.